Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back for another video. I do hope that you are all doing well and that you are all having a great day. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. There's a brand new video every single day. Have all of you been buying into the market? What are you purchasing now? What are you interested in the market? We have been told countless times by every single analyst that September and October are going to be the launch off point for basically, apparently, the craziest altcoin season that we have ever had. Yeah, without any further ado, let's jump right into it. I mean, it was only a matter of time before this actually happened again. We are, you'll see, receiving a lot of rich people buying everything because I sincerely believe that something is wrong. Something's going wrong, something is afoot, something is awry in some capacity, because we keep hearing just how many institutions have turned towards crypto. If you've, and I say this quite often, but it's true because I understand everyone can't watch every single video. I get it. But we've had an abnormal, good word, amount of companies and institutions who we've been finding out have actually been purchasing large amounts of crypto as of late. It is clearly somewhere in their plan that they want all of it before, I believe, the general public actually realizes what's even going on, because at this point it's just a little bit too, like, too on the nose, as it were. In the news today, this is a weirdly worded article. I had to dig around. I'll show you why, but also you'll understand. It says a significant shift is underway in the traditional financial world. The Royal Bank of Canada, the RBC, has made a notable move, substantially increasing its RBC crypto investment. Last year, we began to get news, and this news was not even slightly popular. We started hearing news that a number of millionaires and billionaires in Mexico were buying large amounts of Bitcoin. We heard about some companies who began to buy last year. This was before the idea of any reserve or things like that. And then we also started getting a lot of news about like SEC filings. So people were perusing through their websites and who had filed and who had whatever. And we found out that a number of, apparently, I think if you had made a significant investment in a US company by the way of an ETF, and especially if they had any kind of Bitcoin or Ethereum attached to them, you had to, publicly say, or like file with the SEC, hey, yeah, like we did A, B, C, and D, like that kind of thing. We found out that a bunch of banks within Canada were also buying large amounts of Bitcoin as well. Then we found out that other Nordic companies and Nordic banks and banks across Europe were also, this was the dark ages, where we would get significant news, but because prices weren't moving exactly as people wanted them to, it just never was popular. Like people didn't like glance twice at it. But yeah, no. It's across the board. Everyone, smart money, if you will, is buying up huge amounts of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's just the way that things will continue to be. It says this development highlights a growing trend among major financial institutions embracing digital assets. It's a clear signal of evolving perspectives of the future of finance. Crypto Briefing, okay, first reported this notable increase MicroStrategy. So once again, this is a very weirdly worded article, and I don't know why they did it this way. It's just kind of, it feels like they're patting the bank on the back without actually explaining what's really going on. So I saw this, I looked around, and I found out apparently the news is the Royal Bank of Canada increased their investment in MicroStrategy, and also I think across one or two other Bitcoin ETFs within the space. And that in turn was the news that the Royal Bank of Canada had increased their exposure to Bitcoin or to Bitcoin related companies in this way. And I've said it before, these institutions, banks as well, they're not fools. They know what's going on. This weird idea that for some reason that banks or companies don't know what's going on is completely insane. No, they usually know far more than we do as well. We've seen news reports before of like banks exposure, government exposure, sovereign wealth fund exposure to Bitcoin, or directly holding Bitcoin, or ETFs holding Bitcoin, like this kind of thing. So the Royal Bank of Canada having exposure in some sort of way to Bitcoin is not surprising. I think it would have been more surprising. It would have been a gigantic red flag if us in this space hadn't heard any of this news. If we saw prices where they were and we heard that companies were getting into the space, but there was no news as to who, and nobody was paying attention to us, I'd be like, oh gosh, guys, things aren't looking too good. But no, the money continuously flows. This follows the other news that I was saying before. For those of you not looking at the screen, it says Canadian banks have built up millions in US Bitcoin ETF holdings. This is an article from February or March of last year. BMO has the highest exposure at $13 million, filings show after the investment vehicle's January debut. No, this is like a really the word isn't worrying, but it's like you really need to understand that the world has changed. I think that's going to catch a lot of people by surprise, and it's a shame because it shouldn't. It's that kind of thing. I'm seeing more and more and more videos, things, documentaries on retirement and how people don't have retirement savings. One of them mentioned something that, this has been a discussion for decades. If you haven't been around for decades, it's been around for decades. When I was a little kid, I remember people talking about Social Security running out and pensions running out and people not having enough savings for the future. And people 30 years ago heard that that was going to happen. And now these people are gearing up for retirement. And guess what? They don't have any savings. They heard the news 30 years ago and they did nothing about it. They just assumed that time would fly by or the government would help them or whatever the case might be. So in that same breath, we're getting news like this every single day. If we're getting news in 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, that banks, governments, institutions, hedge funds, family offices, millionaires, billionaires, 100,000aires are buying up massive amounts of this thing that we have been told countless times is going to replace the US dollar, is going to usurp the US dollar, is going to push aside, like, we heard this from the head of the NASDAQ. We heard this from the head of the New York Stock Exchange. We heard this from the head of BlackRock. We heard this from multiple people from Bloomberg. We heard this from a lot of people from Fidelity. The US dollar's not looking too hot. The US dollar's going to falter. The US debt levels are too high. And then wrapped up neatly with a bow, banks around the world are buying Bitcoin. Institutions are buying tons of Bitcoin. These companies want all the Ethereum by the end of the year. This company wants 210,000 Bitcoin. And whenever I say it's a shame, that we keep getting all this news and people within crypto are like, fart coin, yeah, Dogecoin, I want $1 billion. And it's like, this is the same exact thing about decades ago about hearing you need to save money. You should be putting some money away. Do you have a savings account? Are you investing? And it breezed by. Now everyone is almost cursed there, but everyone is fudged. And people can't figure out why. This came out of nowhere. I don't understand. So in 10 to 15 years, when Bitcoin's at $1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, $7 million, when we have a $418 XRP, when Ethereum is 110,000, like, remember these moments. It happens all the time. Humans just never learn. Save, invest, put money away. Follow the money. Follow the money trail. Look at where the big money's going, what big money's doing. That's, just complete logic. So, yes, Canadian banks, Canadian institutions, and companies are buying huge swaths of Bitcoin. That shows no signs of stopping at all. And yeah, let's move on. Also in the news, it says leading Netherlands-based crypto services firm, they're called AMDAX, AMDAX. They've announced plans to launch a Bitcoin treasury company called AMBTSBVAMBTS. Not joking. I assume it means something, but those are the letters that we've been given. The company will be called AMBTSBVAMBTS, with the goal of listing on the Euronext Amsterdam exchange, in a move that underscores the going trend of companies worldwide. It's not just European companies. This is around the globe embracing Bitcoin strategies. Dutch crypto service provider AMDAX reveal they are laying the groundwork for a dedicated Bitcoin treasury company to be listed on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. AMBTS will operate as a privately held company with an independent governance structure and a singular focus on Bitcoin accumulation. Surprise, what? In also lightly delulu new news, the company aims to acquire as much as 1% of the total Bitcoin supply, raising capital from private investors in stages to achieve that ambitious target. Yes, for those of you who also have somehow missed that news as well, every company has the exact same goal. They're not going to hit it. I would say 95% of them will not even remotely get slightly close to it. But the new trend on the block is to A, announce that you like Bitcoin. Yeah. B, announce that you're starting a treasury or a strategy of some sort. And then C, to announce that not only do you want 1,000 Bitcoin, but you're reaching for the stars and you want 210,000 Bitcoin. So as I said before weeks ago, if everyone wants the same thing, not many people will actually be able to have it, because that's just literal logic. If all of these companies purchased 210,000 Bitcoin, by the time three of them did so, there would be no more Bitcoin on the OTC desks, and Bitcoin's price would have risen to 1 million with great ease. And then we're still missing 97 other companies who are going to be quarreling over the last 400,000 Bitcoin that's available. So yeah, here we are yet again, another company. They keep on rolling our way. I assume the number is well over 200 at this point that we have been hearing from companies who are actively engaging in the announcements of them buying large amounts of Bitcoin. We will probably hear about this company in the coming days, weeks, hours, as to how much Bitcoin they plan on buying initially. There's always like the thing in the news, we just purchased 14,000 Bitcoin, and everyone goes, oh my gosh, that's amazing, like that kind of thing. So, I give it a couple days. Awesome. That's the ambitus news. And yeah, let's move on. And what can only be deemed surprising news, because we have never had news like this before. A company by the name of Capital B, you see where this is going, has raised $2.6 million to enhance their Bitcoin holdings, reflecting a significant shift in corporate treasury strategies towards digital assets. Apparently, Adam Back fully backed the funding. So Adam Back is the CEO of Blockstream, which is kind of like the BlackRock of crypto. They take care of Bitcoin's code. They are the people who usually announce initiatives that they would like to see implemented on the Bitcoin blockchain. They have a lot of sway within the space. Yeah. So Capital B was trying to raise money. Adam Back apparently gave them all the money. That's what happens when you're a multi-billionaire. And cool. I don't remember saying Capital B before. And lightly, listen. With over 200 companies, I cannot remember everyone's name or whatever. But I remember, Plan B, the guy within the space. But I feel like I would have made fun of a company called Capital B before for Capital Bitcoin. But that doesn't sound familiar, or like a joke I've made before. Who knows? I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. Cool. Awesome. Another company jumping into the space. $2.6 million. That's fantastic. I hope normal people are buying. I know that they're not, but I hope that they're buying, because we're going to get to a point where Bitcoin several million dollars, where Bitcoin is actually $2.6 million. And normal people just won't have any. So you guesstimate how that's going to work out. So awesome. I think that's going to do it for this video. I do hope that you've all been amazing. Hope everyone out there is doing well. Making sure to take care of yourselves. It is quite important. I had a few days recently where my mind has kind of been all over the place. So I'm making sure to take time out as well to kind of, woosah and get myself a little bit more relaxed. Life is definitely lifing at this point. So remember to take time out for yourselves as well. Thank you, every single one of you, again, for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.